Everybody doing good this morning? All right. Hey, if you're here, thank you for coming, first and foremost. But also, I want you to do something real quick. I got a few slides in the beginning of my presentation that you're going to need your phone for. Everybody here's got a cell phone, right? So everybody pull your cell phone out. Hey, somebody shook their head in the back and said they ain't got a cell phone. Come on, man. Hey, everybody pull your cell phone out of your pocket, please. Come on. I'm being for real. We're going to get a little interactive here today, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tell a story first and foremost, right? About a month ago, we were at a commission board meeting, okay? And we had the agenda in front of everybody, and I was talking to Mr. Chris Hopkins, and he said, Camp, I saw the title of your talk. And he said, it says crop update and defoliation considerations. He said, Camp, I don't think we're going to be talking much about defoliation at this meeting. Hang on to that. We're going to talk about it because I think there's some good information. We started doing some math on some degree days and where the crop is at. So hang on to that, be thinking about that. But the first thing I'm going to do is give a little plug to something new we started this year. We started a Cotton Team podcast, okay? Has anybody here listened to it? Yeah, okay, Taylor listens. That's good. Okay, good. Now, if you got a cell phone and if you want to pull your camera up, all right, and scan one of these codes, if you prefer Apple Podcasts, scan that one on the left. If you prefer Spotify, if you have pay for Spotify, whatever, you can scan that one on the right, and it's going to work for you, okay? Hey, follow us, and you'll get updates every time we drop a new episode. We're going to go home today, and tomorrow morning we're going to record an episode, and it'll be available on Friday, won't it, Maggie? Yes, it will be available on Friday. So scan that, and then follow us. Like I said, we try to provide really timely updates on the crop and what we're seeing and what we're starting to look at in terms of pest pressure, PGRs, fertility, things like that. I think it's a really good resource for those of you that don't have time to read the newsletter or something that we put out every month, okay? Because a lot of y'all are driving sprayers and moving equipment and stuff like that. It's not very safe to read something while you're driving, right? So hopefully you can listen instead and it will be helpful, all right? The other thing, while I'm talking about the newsletter, the Cotton Team has a website, okay? Who here knew that the Cotton Team had a website? A few people, okay? Good. So we also have a code for that, okay? If you want to scan that code and go to the website, okay? And we post things periodically. Of course, I took this screenshot right after I uploaded the post about the mid-year meeting, okay? There was an announcement about that. But there's a little box here in the top right, okay? And if you put your email address and your name in there, then every time I post something on this website or anybody else, I feel like me and Dr. Roberts and then Dr. Serena Liu are the only people that post on the website. But anytime that one of the three of us post something on this website, you'll get an email, okay? So if you take a picture of that code real quick, I know everybody still got their phone out, right? You didn't put it up, did you? Okay? If you want to get your phone out and get email alerts whenever we post something, hey, go ahead and do that, okay? I will go on and tell you, if you are a grower here and already have your phone out, which you should, okay, because we've been taking pictures of these QR codes and stuff, keep it on you, okay, because we got something we're going to do at the end of this, okay, at the end of my talk that's a little different, and I'll explain that whenever we get to it, okay? The other thing, Savannah brought up that we needed to plug the Midville Field Day, okay? For those of you that are on this side of the state, that is an incredible event, and Anthony and his crew are here today. They always put on a good showing at the Midville Field Day. This is the official flyer. There is a QR code on here that's a little bit smaller, but there is pre-registration, right? And so register beforehand so we can get a good count on lunch. Like I say, it's a really good event. There's a lot of research that goes on that station that ends up helping folks on the farm like you guys, okay? So make plans to attend that on August the 7th, all right? So I told the story a second ago about, we were talking about defoliation about a month ago, right? And said, you ain't going to be talking about defoliation, okay? we need to have a conversation about perception versus reality, okay? So perception versus reality. Perception is the way that we see things, okay, right? The way that we observe things. And so these guys over here, they're standing on opposite sides of that number right there, and one of them sees a 6 and one of them sees a 9, right? It all depends on your point of view, okay? Perception is the way that things are seen, okay? But then reality is the way that things are, okay? This is a funny picture I saw about the meeting of perception and reality, where both people think they're saved, but actually they're both sunk, because one of them's on an island, one of them's on a boat stranded in the middle of the ocean. So perception versus reality, that's what we're going to talk about for the first few minutes of my talk, okay? And really, if we were to look at the growing season, these are the months up here at the top, April, May, June, and July is where we are now. If we look at how the growing season has shaped up so far, would y'all say that that's pretty accurate? Okay, it was really, really wet for a long time, okay? Pretty tough to get the crop in during all this nonsense here, okay? And then all of a sudden, it was like we were an inch from the sun, okay? It got really hot and really dry really fast, okay? And so really, as I started thinking about this and the whole perception versus reality part of things, back whenever we talked about my talk about a month ago, it really seemed that because of this stage of where we were in the crop and how hard it was to get the crop in and how far behind it seemed like everybody was, it seemed like, hey, the crop's behind. It seems like it's going to stay that way, right? I mean, would everybody agree with that? It just felt like we've been behind all year, okay? So that's the perception, okay? That's perception, all right? But really, in reality, we're not that far behind, okay? And I'm going to kind of show some things to illustrate that. This is some of the USDA data on crop progress. Serena and Philip both showed me how to do this. They're a little more tech savvy than I am. But, but they know how to pull these graphs out from USDA. But really that dark line on the planted acres, the percent of the crop that's squaring, and the percent of the crop that's set in bowls. The solid line is the year that we're in right now, 2024, okay? The kind of dashed line is last year, and then the dotted line is the 5-year average, okay? So really, if we look at where that solid line is compared to the 5-year average, we're very, very close to where we were. Now, the interesting thing to me is that you see we're right on track up until about mid-May in terms of percent of the crop that's planted. We did get a little bit behind on planting, but the percent of the crop that was squaring was right on the 5-year average. And even, kind of the first part of July, it looked like the percent of the crop that was set in bowls was ahead of that 5-year average, okay? And based on the things that I've seen, I would say that that's pretty well accurate, okay? And so one thing that we can look at to determine where we are on the crop is growing degree days, all right? This is a model that's used to predict crop growth and development based on maximum high temperatures and minimum low temperatures every day. And so you can calculate it. Cotton grows on a growing degree day of 60. So if it's above 60 degrees, the crop is growing. Okay, I do believe that there is a maximum there as well. So that's the way I calculated it. But we're looking at the growing degree day accumulation for the last 4 years. On the red bars is cotton that was planted May 1st. The black bars is cotton that was planted May 15th. And the green bars is cotton that was planted June 1st. Okay? And if you look at this, the highest year in terms of growing degree day accumulation over the last 4 is the one that we're in. Okay? So we are very well above the 4-year average in terms of degree day accumulation, regardless of planting date. Okay, so whether you planted May 1st or June 1st, we're tracking ahead on this crop, okay, based on growing degree days, all right? But some people don't like growing degree days, okay? Some people don't think it's real, okay? I do. I think it's real, okay? And it's a good indicator. It gets you close, all right? But really the question is, how far ahead are we for real? That's a good question. So I've got 3 studies that I'm doing on PGRs, okay? One in Tifton, one in Attapulgis, Georgia, down in Decatur County, and one in Midville on the south end of Burke County, okay? So Tifton and Attapulgis were planted a day apart. May 7th for Attapulgis and May 8th in Tifton, okay? Actually, I think that's backwards. 7th in Tifton, 8th in Attapulgis. And then in Midville, we planted the same study on May 22nd, all right? Just about, it was 10 days ago, wasn't it, Anthony, that I was on your place spraying this? I sprayed the first bloom sprays, all right, on July 11th in Tifton and Attapulgis, okay? So some of the stuff that was planted first part of May, July 11th was first bloom on those crops. But then I sprayed the same treatment in Midville 10 days ago on July 15th, all right? Now, what does that mean? Okay, that means that crop that was planted May 22nd is getting after it, okay? It is growing fast and it's catching up on the degree days, okay? And really, there's only a difference between those 3 planting dates and all these locations of 70 growing degree days, which is about 3 days, okay? 3 days difference, but they were planted 2 weeks apart, okay? So at the end of the day, based on this observation alone, I think that in some cases we could be plus or minus 10 days ahead of schedule on some of this later planted stuff, okay, especially some of that May 20th and so on and so forth, okay. So we are very much ahead of schedule on this crop, and anybody that I've talked to that's out looking, they say, man, this cotton is kicking it. Yeah, I mean, it is getting after it, and they are right if you're out there checking cotton, okay. So the heat and the sunshine and the rain that everybody has been fortunate to catch now means that this crop is off to the races, okay? I did hear on Sunday there was a rain up in the north part of the state. That crop is about to kick off and get going, okay? And even down here there was 1.5 inches this past weekend, more or less. So we are catching rain. We've got hot days and sunshine. That is good for this crop, and we are moving fast, okay? I do believe that we have got a good crop out there, okay? Plain and simple, that we have got good potential, okay? So, a couple things that you might see in the field this time. This is a field that we planted April 17th. It's the first cotton, the second cotton we planted on the station. Dr. Roberts likes to jump out and plant something real early. We'll show a picture of that here in a second. This was planted April 17th, okay? And Dr. Roberts pointed this out to me. He was out trying to sample stink bugs with his group, and they couldn't find the right size bowls on the day that they were sampling. Well, then you start looking at the crop and there's some stuff missing. There's a gap in the middle of that plant, okay? There's a gap, but we didn't have plant bugs, okay? Couldn't buy one. If you listen to the podcast, Dr. Roberts couldn't buy a plant bug, okay? So insects were not the issue here, okay? Missing squares and small bowls. So if it's not plant bugs, then what is happening in this crop? Anybody want to guess? It's irrigated, by the way. Light, heat, and water affects that fruit retention whenever we get to peak bloom, okay? Whenever we get to peak bloom, that crop can only support so much, okay? So if conditions are not favorable to retain those fruit and push them to harvest and maturity, right, maturity of those bowls, then it is going to shed some fruit, okay? It is normal to see a little bit of fruit shed, all right? But really what we thought happened in our case was that it got really overcast. It started raining, pretty frequently in Tifton, and so that plant aborted some of those fruit in favor of production later, all right? And this is some data from Dr. John Snyder, and the white dots show cotton that was exposed to low light conditions for 3 days, and then the black dots were some that had full sun, right, Dr. Snyder? So if you look at that, the stuff that was exposed to low light for 3 days, which, in our case, it'd be overcast days, cloudy weather, which we've started having a little bit of, up to 12 days, it had 100% fruit shed, okay? So that's an important thing to make note of. If you have cloudy days, rainy days, and then extreme heat can also do this, but you might see a little bit of fruit shed, especially if you're past that peak bloom period in your crop. Okay, so just kind of keep those things in mind. That is a normal thing to see, and it's the plant response to those environmental factors. Okay, now I did want to talk about June and late cotton. Okay, according to the data that's out there from USDA, all right, we have just as much June planted cotton as normally do as a state. Okay, across the board. All right, now you as an individual grower might have more late planted cotton than you ever have, okay? Is that a fair statement to everybody? I mean, you know, some guys have planted more late cotton than they ever have, but I will say across the board it seems about normal that we have this late planted cotton, and it's because, you know, you guys as growers, y'all are incredible logistics managers, and the more land that we take in on the station, the more I find that out, because we've had to start making a circle around town in terms of spraying and planting and so on and so forth. So you guys are incredible logistics managers, but you know, whenever it was so rainy all the time in May, it was like it wasn't hitting everywhere, right? So y'all were able to move around and plant where you could and where it was dry and stuff like that. So the crop was able to get in and get going. But, you know, a couple things that I'm thinking about. We've got some late cotton, right? That was planted, wasn't that planted June 17th, Dr. Roberts? They're in Tifton. And then we've got some, this is a picture from Pam Sapp. Was it last week you sent that to me, Pam? So last week, Pam sent me this picture, cotton is blooming out the top. It was planted early, hadn't had a rain, okay? So I'm considering the late planted cotton, the stuff that was in June, mid-June, whatever it is, and then the early planted cotton that hadn't been growing, I'm considering that a late crop, okay? Both of them, all right? So what do we do in this type situation if you had never dealt with it or aren't used to dealing with it, okay? 3 things I want to talk about. Back off the nitrogen if you got a late crop, okay? Be more aggressive with our PGRs, and then be realistic on what we're trying to get out of that crop, okay? A couple years ago, we planted a study in Tifton and in Midville. We planted the Tifton location June the 6th and then planted the Midville location on June 20th, okay? I was able to jump in and defoliate the stuff in Tifton before a frost, but that stuff in Midville was not quite ready, and we got an early frost on that study. This was, I think it was last year, Anthony, and we cut our yield 50%, okay? So, you know, it makes a big difference, some of these steps we can take to, you know, maximize some of that late planted crop. So, you know, we talk, whenever Dr. Harris talks about some of his recommendations and things like that, he always talks about yield goal, right? We talk about fertilizing by yield goal, okay? But I think it is just as important to stress that we are trying to fertilize for realistic yield goals, okay? So you have to be realistic. You guys know your farms, you know your fields, you know what you can get, okay? So at the end of the day, whenever we plant in June, we got to be a little more realistic. Dr. Roberts, I mean, on June 17th, I would hope that we can make, you know, if we can make 2 bale, that's great, right? I mean, but 750, that'd also be really good. If it's June 17th, we get an early frost, whatever it is, okay? So based on that, we're going to back our nitrogen rates off to 60 or 75 total units per acre, okay? And not try to push that crop so hard. If you try to put too much nitrogen on a late planted crop, first and foremost, it's coming screaming out the ground. It's already so hot, it's going to be vegetative anyways. If you add nitrogen, too much nitrogen to the situation, it's going to stay vegetative, and it's not going to start putting energy into reproduction. You almost want to put enough nitrogen to get it going, and then let it run out of gas to help you get that crop out in time. Okay, so adjust those N rates based on realistic yield goals, okay? And really, you know, some of the work that Dr. Snyder has done, if we are more aggressive on our PGR strategies, things like earlier applications, higher application rates, more frequent application intervals, so tightening in those intervals. If you normally wait 2 weeks, maybe look at it in 10 days, okay, 7 to 10 days, something like that. Trying to be a little more aggressive, it's going to slow that vegetative growth and encourage fruiting of that crop, okay? So those are the things I definitely want you guys to keep in mind on some of this later planted stuff, okay? Now, the other thing to keep in mind with a late planted crop, and this goes back to being realistic, is when is a white bloom actually going to result in a harvestable boll, okay? And this is something that Dr. Roberts is going to talk about in terms of terminating insecticide applications, I'm sure. But really, you know, some of the data suggests that from a white flower to a mature boll, it takes 850 growing degree days, all right? Now, what does that mean on the farm? Okay, that, you know, I need to translate that. research over the last couple years throughout the southern part of our state showed that our last effective bloom date, and that means that white flower resulted in a harvestable boll, is somewhere between September 1st and 15th. Okay, it was kind of a moving target. It depends on rainfall and things like that as well, right? On some of our locations, we caught a rain while we were doing this study, and there wasn't many bolls, right? And that's because it goes back to that fruit retention slide I showed just a second ago. Okay, so it's very dependent on year, but somewhere between September 1st and 15th is our last effective bloom date. Okay, so definitely be expecting something like that. And then after the second week of September, the odds of producing a harvestable boll drop significantly. Okay, they drop significantly. All right, so if it's after September 15th and you see flowers out there, let's not try to chase that. Okay, let's bet on the stuff that we're pretty confident in. All right, and be realistic. Right, being realistic. Okay, so at the end of the day, the bottom line on this crop, although we may feel like the crop is behind, okay, again, perception, right? We feel like the crop is behind. This crop is progressing very rapidly, okay? So get out there, be looking at the crop, and really the take-home point for me is that in many places, this crop will be ready before you are, okay? You might even be able to get out there and pick some cotton before you do peanuts. How about let's try that, huh? Get a little cotton before we do some peanuts. So this crop is moving really fast. So let's think about doing some of those things. And of course, you know, I do want to talk a little bit about defoliation, not too much, because you know, I'm kind of running short on time here. But you know, the main thing is that this crop is ahead of schedule. Okay, and so we need to keep in mind, and of course, being realistic, that you know, we need to get the stuff that's going to pay us, right, at the end of the day. So this was done back in 2019 by Dr. Jared Whitaker. Jennifer's probably giving me an ugly look right now because it's not hers, but really below that red line is where 91% of our crop comes from. Okay, 91% of our crop comes from node 15 down. Okay, so if you're trying to chase this stuff up here, that $1 up there on node 22, let's not do that, because you're going to lose more down here by trying to wait on that one. Okay, so let's get the stuff that's down here, get it to the gin, and get everybody paid. Okay, so let's defoliate in a timely manner. All right, like I said, this one is going to sneak up on us. Get out and check the crop. Okay, checking it from the window ain't enough. All right, get out there and look at it. Okay. Timing is everything. 60 to 75% open boll, 4 node above crack boll, and then cutting into those bolls with a PVC cutter or a sharp knife or whatever it looks like, okay? And then also stay in touch with your county agent. If you're a county agent that's here, raise your hand, please. Y'all are all kind of congregated around. Yep, so I send emails during defoliation time, okay? And they get those emails, and I hope that they forward them out to you guys, okay? That's the kind of stuff that's really going to be helpful, okay? So also I did get a question about defoliation walking in here. You know, there's a lot of mixed stands and things like that. Of course, I like to go with the majority of the crop, and then if it's split, we got a tough decision we got to make whether we're going to get the stuff that's a sure thing or wait for some of that other, okay? So, and that's one of those situations that a lot of times we're going to wait and see the potential of that later crop compared to the stuff that's a little bit closer to ready, but we got a long ways to go before we got to cross that bridge, okay? Now, any questions on the crop? What am I like time-wise? Am I okay? Yeah, all right. So any questions on the crop real quick this year, or any questions about, you know, defoliation or anything like that? Philip Edwards, you got any questions about defoliation? County Agent Philip Edwards. All right, real quick. I'm going to take a detour, all right? And if you're a grower, that I said keep your phone out, get your phone back out if you don't have it, okay? So, real quick, all right, last year, all right, it was at this meeting, I asked the question. I said, how many people in here have a deer problem, okay? Who's got a deer problem? Yeah? Okay, cool. So, we started ramping up deer research this time, okay? And if you read Southeast Farm Press or the newsletter or Come to the Beltwide or whatever it is, this is something that we've been talking about and getting the word out on. Okay, and a lot of you guys that came to county meetings this winter helped us out with this information. Okay, if you want to see that information a little bit more in depth, some of my crew is here. Lance, Maggie, and Amy, raise your hands, please. Yep, so those are some of my students. They're all helping with the deer stuff. Okay, so there's a poster with them that shows some of the survey data from this past winter. It turned out really cool, and I think we can really get some good help on that. But that's not the only thing that we're doing, okay? Lance, raise your hand, Lance, again. All right, Lance has come and put cages in a lot of fields, okay? And we're trying to quantify yield losses due to deer, okay? Now, you may look at that cage right there and say, there ain't no way the deer stay out of there, okay, right? Y'all, I mean, it ain't but 5 foot tall. It's about 15 foot long and 3 rows wide, but really, you can see, it may be a little difficult to see, but you can see the cotton inside the cage looks different from the stuff that's outside, okay? Everybody agree with that? All right, so I think we're going to get some good data on Lance's project, okay? It's going to be some good stuff. Maggie, raise your hand. This is one of Maggie's projects, and we're out there we're acting like deer. That was one of the funniest instructions I ever gave a crew of workers, okay? I said, think like a deer, okay? It's not that difficult. Think like a deer, okay? So we're out there clipping plants. This was one of them that, this was the last time that we did, I think it was last week, wasn't it, at the pivot? Yeah, so we did this last week. If you're coming to the Cotton and Peanut Field Day in Tifton, this will be something that we look at. Okay, it's right there where we're going to stop. I think it's a really neat study. It's a very visual thing that we can show some folks, okay? And then we're also doing some repellent work, okay? Now, unfortunately, we're doing repellent work on soybeans because it's a little easier to get deer pressure on soybeans, okay? But, you know, we spray repellents on this every other week. Dr. Roberts has done some repellent work, spraying every week. So we're really looking hard at some of this stuff, okay? We're really spending a lot of time on it, all right? I want you guys to know that. But I talked about the survey from this winter, okay? And we got some really, really neat data from that, all right? But the conversations after the survey, to me, were even more interesting than the survey itself, all right? I had a conversation with a grower in Houston County, and he told me this story right here, the second bullet, okay? This is reducing my quality of life, okay? I can't stay up all night and farm all day. Everybody agree with that? You can't stay up all night trying to tend to this problem and then farm during the daytime, okay? The landowners won't let me do what I need to do, but ask me to farm a food plot, which would be soybeans, so they can hunt in the fall. And when I told them no, they wouldn't let me farm that place anymore, okay? Seems like folks value deer more than farmers, all right? That was a conversation I had with a grower this past winter, okay? Another guy called me a couple weeks ago. I'm at my wit's end here. It takes a lot for me to want to give up, but these deer make me want to throw my hands up in the air, okay? People agree with these kind of statements here? Okay, all right. So this is a complex issue, all right? We're working on the cotton side and the reductions in yield and management tactics and things like that. And so we're trying hard to get answers on that front, okay? But this is complex because it is also affecting you guys, okay, in a way that is hard to quantify, all right? So there's a group with UGA that's really been focusing a lot on rural health, right, and farmer well-being, okay? And so I reached out to them after some of these conversations because it was alarming. I mean, it really woke me up, okay? And so we are going to try today to get some data on how this is affecting your quality of life as a grower, okay? And I think if we pair that kind of data up with the numbers we're getting in the field, that we can take that to people that make decisions and it will get their attention. Whenever we pair the numbers in the cotton field with the real life stories from you guys on how this is affecting you and your quality of life, okay? So, if you are a grower and you have your phone, all right, please pull it out now and scan that code, okay? And we're going to take a second. Am I still okay, Taylor? We're going to take a second and walk through this, okay? Now, I already mentioned Maggie. Maggie, raise your hand, please. This is also part of Maggie's thesis, okay? So if we want Maggie Yates to graduate with a master's degree, you should fill this survey out, okay? So it's going to help, all right? So there's really 4 parts to this survey, okay? The first one is talking about how, the number that best represents you over the last month, and it talks about during the last month, my motivation is lower when I'm fatigued. Exercise brings on fatigue. I'm easily fatigued, stuff like that. 7 means you strongly agree, and 1 means you don't at all, okay? So that is the first part. It's about 9 questions, all right? I'll give you all a second to kind of fill that out and then catch up with it. And again, I do want to give a shout out to Anna Chiette. She is a professor in the College of Ag and also the School of Social Work at the University of Georgia, and she helped us put this together. And so she's going to help us analyze the data, and we're going to try to get this in the hands of people, again, that can help us out with it, okay? Everybody done with the first part? Yeah, all right. So the second part says, how likely are you to doze off or fall asleep in the following situations? Okay, and so it, lists off a couple situations here. The 0 would be, I'm not ever going to doze off. The 3 would be, there is a high chance that I'm going to doze off. I think I could doze off at any second. I'm pretty tired, okay? But, let's walk through that one. But the important thing at the end of that one, it says, what percentage of your fatigue and sleepiness do you think is due to having to protect your cotton crop from deer? Okay, that is what we need. Okay, so answer that, and talking about the likelihood that you're going to fall asleep during any one of these activities and stuff like that, and then the percentage of your fatigue and sleepiness that is associated with deer. Okay, all right. The other thing, there's a third part. It says, please circle the response for each question below. I did it, of course, online, right? So click it. But it's just 4 questions and talking about feel like you're unable to control important things in your life. Have you felt confident about your ability to handle problems? Felt that things were going your way? All right, things like that. And then at the end of that section, it is another percentage. And it says, what percentage of the feelings you rated in Part C do you think are due to having to protect your cotton crop from deer? Okay, so again, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. And I know I've talked to a lot of people that express, hey, you do everything you can, and then they just come and take it. And again, that's one of them things that's like out of your control. Okay, so that's why that part of the survey is important. And then the last part, Part D, is a little bit of personal information about yourself, okay? So pretty straightforward stuff. I do appreciate you guys taking the time on this if you filled it out on your phone. But also, if you didn't fill it out on your phone and you would rather fill it out on a piece of paper, okay? You can go see, we have a table. And I talked about the poster and stuff like that. Lance, Maggie, and Amy, they're at a table. If you go out that door and turn right and go to the door you came in and you turn right again and you go all the way down at the end, they are down there and they have a paper version of the survey and some pens if you would rather fill it out on paper. Okay, they also have the poster that talks about the survey we did over the wintertime. They also have a poster on the podcast. So, you can scan the QR code again on the podcast, but they also, if you need them, they have pesticide credits at that table, okay? So during the break, if you want to go see them and get your pesticide credits, they'll be out there and stuff like that. But I do, of course, want to thank the Cotton Commission. I look forward to this event. It's a lot of fun. I've been over here for 3 days. I've gotten to see the crop on the east side of the state. So it's been a really fun 3 days getting to visit with some of these guys. And of course, everything that I do, it wouldn't be possible without the Commission, Farm Bureau, Cotton Incorporated, and then all of our agents and grower cooperators and things like that.